let's have fun in this video. Actually, we're going to get really serious. I'm going to tell you the deepest secrets of current day physics, which is general relativity and quantum mechanics. And by the way, general relativity was raising its head while Nikola Tesla was still around, and this is exactly what Nikola Tesla meant when he said you can be a deep thinker and yet still be insane. Just because you're a deep thinker doesn't mean you're not insane. A lot of people, cults and religions, certain cults and religions are based around, these abstracted conceptual insanities. There's a multi-million-dollar cult located in Florida that's based upon the insane ravings of a lunatic science fiction writer. So, how do you actually start this off and make a really good analogy? I'm going to be totally serious in this video. As far as, pulling up the skirt on modern science and general relativity, and I'll make two enormous statements, and they'll be undeniable and irrefutable. First off, let me ask you a question. If someone were to come up to you and say that there's no difference between a real duck and Donald Duck, would you think that person was insane? Yeah, you would. What if someone came up to you and said that there's no difference ultimately between Mario Brothers, aren't those the little the characters on games, and like real people? So you have virtual ducks, Donald Duck. I know this sounds crazy, right? And you're like, well, that person's just an insane asshole, right? This is absolutely 100% no different than general relativity and quantum mechanics and its belief in virtual photons. Let me explain something. First, let's get to, you always have to start at the foundation when building a house. You kind of know how that works. You got to lay the foundation. When someone denies the ether, I don't give a damn what word you call it. Ether, it's inertia. It is the field. When someone denies the ether, which is absolutely impossible, nobody can deny the ether, but general relativity and quantum mechanics has, and the Michelson-Morley experiment never actually negated the ether. It never did that either. People always point to that. When you negate the ether, you can only substitute it with one thing, and that is an atomistic insanity. But then all these other horrible, horrible problems crop up for you. And then you have to explain things which have nothing to do with particles. We could say that two things bumping together as particles, molecular interactions, particles here, that's all fine. When you talk about fields and magnetism and things that have absolutely no phenomenal reality whatsoever, because a field is not a thing. And a wave is not a thing either. A wave is not what something is. It's like, this is a wave. No, what's waving? My hand is waving. No, this is... They reify nonsense. When you eliminate the ether, you can only substitute it with one thing. Particles. Let's see. Let's give you an example of the insanity. Because these people have actually said, in absolutely the exact same analogy, there's no difference between like a virtual character in a cartoon and a real person. And I'll prove that to you here in a second. I'm going to quote these morons. As such, there's absolutely no distinction between a real and a virtual particle. In practice, the lifetime of an ordinary particle, meaning a regular particle, is far longer than the lifetime of a virtual particle that contributes to the processes of particle physics. By the way, virtual photons have never been the inputs or outputs of any scientific experimentation ever in history. Ever. There's never been... we're talking about... It's like saying a cartoon character is going to jump out of your TV set. Real experimentation. Listen, these idiots, these insane assholes, and that is exactly what they are. They're insane assholes. They literally believe that the most important principles in cosmic mechanics are mediated by things that have absolutely no basis in reality, are never the inputs or outputs of any experimentation. I'm going to actually give you a direct quote from these morons, these brain-dead mental midgets, these intellectual cockroaches. This is them talking. A virtual photon is virtual particle, is an abstraction. They also call them virtual photons. Virtual particle, virtual photons, they use the terms interchangeably, is an abstraction which facilitates in the calculations and understandings. The term is vaguely and loosely defined. They never appear as the inputs or outputs of experiments. Their existence is questionable at best. However, they are very useful when rendering concepts and making equations balance out. That is a very fancy way of saying we invented shit to use in equations because we don't know what a field is. You see, everything is a field and fields are not particles. When you remove the ether, kind of like imagining water everywhere, right? You know, you flap your arms in the water, you create pressure waves. Everything is a pressure mediation. Okay. Out in the deepest, space is not a thing, by the way. Let's just say between two galaxies where there is absolutely nothing for 1,000,000,000,000 miles, you know, there is still that water, the ether. Instantaneous action at a distance. You know, particle, you know, they think, well, nothing travels faster than the speed of light. Well, the speed of light is not even a speed to begin with. It's a rate of induction. Light slows down as it passes through glass or water. Light is not a speed, it is a rate of induction. It is the maximum rate of induction through the medium. You want to call that medium inertia or ether? I don't give a damn what you call it. It's the maximum rate of induction of any transverse phenomena. Any phenomena that has transverse modalities. This is a transverse phenomena. Wave, you know. Hey, it's a wave. A wave of what, moron? A wave of what? People, these idiots, these assholes in quantum physics and general relativity, and they are demented assholes. And this is exactly what Nikola Tesla said about thinking deeply and yet being insane at the same time. Nikola Tesla specifically stated that the reification or the notion that space has properties was insane and was ludicrous, and he's correct. Time is not a thing either. Time is only a concept. It's the measure of the passing of magnitudes. Space is not a thing. It's a privation, absolutely no different than a shadow. Like, well, there's a shadow, that's a thing. No, 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 that's an absence of light. That shadow is not... Well, sure, I can see the shadow right there. You know, that's just like space. Yeah, you're right, it's exactly like space. It is not a thing in and of itself. It is a privation. Okay? It is literally the after effect of the reciprocation of the loss of dielectricity, as expressed by this neat little tattoo on the side of my wrist, by the way. 1 over 5 to the power of -3. The reciprocating processional hyperboloid that defines magnetism. Let's go on to something. These people use virtual particles and virtual photons to explain the most fundamentally important cosmic mechanics of the universe. Virtual photons is the magnetic field. These people actually think since a magnetic field that exists around a magnet, we know the field's there, right? These assholes, which are atomists, by the way, they are atomists. Quantum means quantity, means materialism, means atomism. Atomism is as old as time itself. They were ancient Greek atomists, and they're just a bunch of lunatic assholes that thought everything in the universe was just a bunch of little magic particles bumping and meeting and bumping and communicating. Modern physics and quantum mechanics and general relativity is atomism. It is atomism. Undeniably, irrefutably, stinking, rancid, dirty, intellectually retarded atomism. They will say right here, a magnetic field between a magnetic dipole, meaning between either pole of a magnet, is caused by the exchange of virtual photons, or particles. This is what these assholes are saying to you. They are saying that something that is not the input or output of any experiment on Earth, these totally imaginary things that they use to balance out their equations, they actually think that magnetism itself in the field surrounding a magnet is comprised of virtual photons. This is not me saying this insane bullshit. This is these idiots. These morons are actually saying this. They attribute virtual photons to almost everything else, to electromagnetic induction. This phenomenon transfers that we all know well, you should know what electromagnetic induction is. They ascribe that to virtual photons. In other words, how an AC generator or a DC generator works. What is going on there, which they know it's not particles, so they're virtual particles. They're virtual photons. They use those terms interchangeably. Virtual photons, virtual particles. Let me quote you the one of the cult leaders of this religion of atomism, and it is a stinking religion. Leonard Suskind, professor of theoretical physics, PhD, and priest of the cult of quantum. Here, I'm going to quote the moron. When common sense and intuition fails... This idiot actually said this. When common sense and intuition fails... we, the relativists, had to create a new form of intuition based upon abstract mathematics. This moron is saying this. When common sense fails, we must create uncommon sense. This moron actually, in a very fancy way, just basically said, when common sense fails, we have to create insane bullshit to explain things. That is exactly what this guy is. Hardcore cult leader, I mean, #1, you know, this guy is like the Pope of quantum mechanics. He is like the Pope of quantum mechanics, and this is what this idiot said. He actually said, when common sense fails, we have to create crazy bullshit. That is what he just said. That's a direct quote from this moron. People believe this guy, buy his books. He's just a crazy old coot with a beard. Oh, he's got a PhD. Everybody loves him. He's got a great personality. He'd be a great person to have a beer with. Man, I love him. You know, you can't say anything about... no, this guy's a moron. This is exactly the type of person Nikola Tesla was referring to. Let's, the other cult leader who's dead now, thankfully. Thankfully, we don't have to look at his ugly face anymore. He's not writing anything else. At least that's the good part. Hooray! You can't write anything else. This is what Richard Feynman said. The more you see how strange nature behaves, the harder it is for us to make a model that explains even how the most simple phenomena work. Theoretical physics has given up on this pursuit. He just said that theoretical physics has given up on explaining the simple things like magnetism. The most famous video on the internet, and everybody should look at it on YouTube, is a British guy asking him how a magnet works. And Richard Feynman's sitting there in his fancy red stuffed chair, and he's squirming and wiggling, and then he talks about his grandmother slipping on the ice. It is the most ridiculous, insane, absolute, absurd bullcrap on YouTube. This guy who is just a total cult figurehead in quantum mechanics, Richard Feynman, it's an amazing video. The British guy isn't putting him on the spot. You know, so just explain. No, I don't. You know, just explain magnetism. How do these magnets? You know. And, oh my God. And Richard, he doesn't even answer the damn question, which is fine. It is okay not to know. It's like, I don't know. We're still working on that. You know, science is still. Yeah, that would have been a good answer. No, well, you just can't explain it. It's just too complex for you to understand. It's kind of like talking about Aunt Millie slipping on the. This is actually what he says. He talks about some old broad slipping on the ice. It's like, have you lost your damn... These people are insane assholes. They're idiots. These are the people with PhDs that people look up to in colleges and universities. These are those very people. These are direct quotes from these morons. These are direct quotes. What the hell do you think you make of stuff like this? I mean, do you fall for this crap? They literally told you that a virtual photon... They've told you. A virtual photon is no different than a real... a virtual particle is no different than a real particle. When written in the usual mathematical notation in the equation for physics, there is no marked distinction between a virtual and actual particle. Okay then there's no difference between Donald Duck and a real duck. This is what Nikola Tesla was referring to when he was talking about deep thinkers that are insane. If you don't understand what I said in this video, I'm not going to comment on the rest of that. I made this abundantly clear how insane these people are. They are flat out, balls out insane. They're lunatics. A lunatic with a PhD, you know, it is no different than a sick cult or some twisted stinking religion talking about UFOs landing and taking you to the the glass paradise on planet Zebu, or it really just crazy BS. So anyway, bye.